technology. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about chloride. You know, that is something that is going to, looks like it's going to be an item that's going to affect our pocketbooks. I want you to remember that our city council members make up 2/3 of the sanitation board. Our sanitation board is made up of two city council members from Santa Clarita and 1 county supervisor. Over a year ago, the sanitation board came to the council and asked the full council for some advice and some recommendations. And they were supposed to enact a 2-tier approach to minimize the financial impact of this on Santa Clarita. And what they were asked to do was explore alternatives, explore legislative and legal avenues. And in those alternatives, one of them, of course, is going to be to build a chloride RO plant. So we've been going back now, and we've been asking our sanitation board members what's happening. And they're not talking. So I sent an email in. I think we talked about this a few months ago. And we got an email back from Marcia, because Marcia McLean and Lorraine West were on the sanitation board last year. And Marcia said, we're doing everything we can. But you know me, I don't particularly take those kind of answers. So I went to the council meeting twice, went to public participation and said, what's happening? And they're just not talking. So we decided, well, let's go find out a little bit more about this ourselves. That also came up when Cam Noltmeyer went to public participation and indicated that our sanitation board had borrowed a large sum of money to plan that wastewater treatment plant additions. And of course, that plan is one of the alternatives. But in fact, what we have to realize is that when we borrow a large sum of money, someone's got to pay it back. And the only people that are available to pay it back are you, right? So it turns out that they borrowed $23 million to create this plan. And this is a similar technique that was used in 2004, where instead of coming to the ratepayers and saying, we've got some new things we want to do, in that time it was to remove nitrates from the water, because that was the item that the Regional Water Board was concerned about. They just did it. And they did it because right there at the time in 2004, they had some excess money and they got some grants. But all of a sudden, when it came down to 2010, they were out of money. So they came back to us and said, hey guys, we have these processes that we have in place. We don't have enough money for them now. We want you to pay for them. So the 3 rate increases, one that took place last year, one that took place this year, and one that's going to take place next year, are all generated because of the decision that was made in 2004. Now we have a decision made where $23 million is being borrowed, and there's a good question as to who's going to pay it. And that's only the plan. So when we start talking about who's going to repay that loan, if in fact we actually have to provide that alternative, well, you're going to see that the estimated costs are all over the ballpark. But the number was around $500 million. We had Mr. Cawley, who's here today, say, well, maybe it's more than $500 million, you know. But that's a lot of money in anybody's book. And so the only method to pay for that is to increase your yearly assessment, and they will be back to discuss increases in the summer of 2014, because that's when their increases that they've already got approved end. So we turned around and we said, we really want to know more about this. I actually contacted the Regional Water Board, not the Regional Water Board, but the Sanitation District. Mr. Guledge, the finance chief, came out and had a meeting with Spence and I and talked about it. And he said, yes, indeed. We are in the process of starting the plan to plan an RO plant, a reverse osmosis plant, to eliminate salt from the water. That is going to reduce that to somewhere in the neighborhood. It has to be below 100 milligrams per liter. And he knew of no other legislative solutions or legal options that were being taken. So we said, all right, that's interesting. Please put us on the distribution list for sanitation board agendas, and for when Mr. Gouledge told us that there'd be a notice of preparation for the start of the EIR process take place sometime in January. It's supposed to be in the paper. I haven't seen it yet. Has anybody seen that in the paper? No. But anyway, here it is. They sent it to me. They're doing exactly, the guys, the staff guys, the guys that are doing work, they just do their job, right? And so they promised it, they delivered it, okay? And we can talk about that a little bit more. We also talked to him about the 6,000 temporary users to come from Newhall Ranch for the Newhall Ranch project. And the fact that connection fees would be about $30 million. And two questions arise. One was, are you going to give those connection fees back when they leave? And the other answer is, what are you going to do with $30 million if you keep it? Well, he didn't know the answer to the first question or the second question. So we thought maybe we better do a little bit more research. So we went to the county. And just on January 13th, I met with Ed Viscara. And we decided we were going to talk about this issue. And when I talked to Ed, he is the planning deputy for Mike Antonovich. He also said there are no legal or legislative solutions currently being pursued that he was aware of. But in reference to the 6,000 temporary Newhall Ranch users, he said when they pay the connection fees, they will not get the connection fees back. So we'll see exactly what happens. But if they do not, what that $30 million is going to do? Because the $30 million, remember, connection fees go into a fund to enhance capability because you've added new users. And if those new users go in and out, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. He also told me that the agreement currently is that when they have 3,000 plus one temporary user from the Newhall Ranch project, they have to have their RO plant, they have to have their wastewater treatment plant graded and the infrastructure started, kind of like some of the other master plans we've seen. And at 6,000 plus one, it has to be up and running, and they have to be ready to transfer the users back. Now, in addition to all of these greatest bits of information, we found out that, of course, that the head of the Sanitation Board, Mr. McGuinn, is retiring. And there's a new person taking place. And they've estimated now what the cost of this is going to be, and they claim it's going to be $150 million. So I think it's interesting. You'll see that, at some times we heard $500 million, then we heard $250 million. Now we're hearing $150 million. If we wait long enough, they'll pay us to build it. That'll never happen, right? So what will that reverse osmosis plant cost? Well, remember, there's $23 million in planning, and there's going to be some other number attached to it. I don't believe it's going to be $150 million. I think that's too low. It's probably going to be more like $250 or $500 million. And remember, the $500 million solution is the solution where we build a pipe to the ocean to get rid of the brine. The $250 million solution was a solution where we inject the brine in deep wells. I don't know what the $150 million solution is. But anyway, I decided to think about what's that going to cost you, because we keep hearing all these numbers about what's it going to cost you in your tax bill. I think you'd like to know, wouldn't you? So I decided to use the open space assessment as a model. Now, I don't know if it's a good model, but it's a model. And in the open space assessment, they're using, the original plan was to borrow $30 million. They didn't borrow it, but that was the original plan. And in order to support lease revenue bonds for $30 million, it would cost basically every single-family dwelling owner $30 a year, increasing $1 a year, because on lease revenue bonds, unlike your home mortgage where you pay the interest first, on a lease revenue bond you pay the interest last. So it's an interesting concept. I don't know why we couldn't figure that out for other things. So you actually need twice as much money going in at the end of the lease that you did at the beginning. But that's why I said I don't know if this is a good model, but it is a model that is in place, and I have no way to figure out what the connection fees would be. So currently, a sewage rate on that same single-family dwelling is $215. You guys probably all saw that on your tax bill this year. And then, remember, that's not all you pay. The $215, and this is part of the problem with this whole issue. We have a sanitation district that treats wastewater. We have a consolidated sewer district that takes care of the sewer pipes. And we have water districts that take care of water. And none of them seem to be able to do anything that the other one can do. And to get them to talk and come up with a joint plan or solution is very difficult. So realize you're paying $215 plus $40. So an additional cost of a reverse osmosis plant, if in fact you finance it over 30 years using the open space model at an additional $30 for every $30 million you had to borrow, says that if it was $23 million plus $150, it would be an additional $167 a year. And if it was $250, it would be $267 a year. And if it was $500, it would be $505 a year. Which brings us to say, now we're paying $255. And this is one of the reasons I like to say it in yearly numbers, because every time we have heard about additional increases to the sanitation district fees, and we go around, they always say, well, it's only $1.60 a month. You know, why don't they tell it to us in a week? That's only 40 cents a week, right? But when you add it up, it turns out to be a fair amount. And it happens to be, at least on my tax bill, the highest single assessment that's on there. So in the future, we're going to be looking at, and I think the number is really going to be somewhere around at least $760 a year. And for those people on fixed incomes, that's going to be tough. It's going to be a large number. And what do we get for all that extra money? Nothing. You know, if we do this plan, I mean, this is total insanity. If we do this plan, you know what we do? We're going to clean all this water to throw it away. That's almost like saying you're going to wash all your garbage before you throw it in the trash can. That's insanity. So we ought to talk about some alternates. Now, the notice of preparation, I should have said not participation, it's preparation, was interesting. I wasn't that familiar with the EIR process, so I actually talked with Lynn Plambeck, because Lynn Plambeck is much more knowledgeable about this than I am. And I found out that the notice of preparation comes before the EIR process, and it's a discussion of alternates that are going to be analyzed through that process. So we have an opportunity to talk about alternates. And again, if I have to pay $700 a year, $760 a year, I would very much rather get something than just treat water and throw it away. So here we are. We're going to determine, they're going to determine project alternatives to be analyzed. It starts with a 40-day process. Starting on January the 9th, it was supposed to be in our local paper. I haven't seen it. And ending on February 17th. They will accept written input. I'm going to give them some written input. Okay? And there will be some public meetings. Alternates currently include blending RO and tertiary treated water to reduce the need for the plant at the Saugus level. Isn't that correct, Ed? At the Saugus plant? They're going to blend water, RO water, with tertiary water from Valencia to Saugus to reduce the need for RO treatment at Saugus. That's one alternative.
And blending groundwater with.
And blending groundwater? Oh, okay. All right, because I just took it off of here. All right. So, but I didn't see how that was going to work. So another option, of course, is a deep well brine injection to take some wells and put the brine in there. I don't know how long you can do that before there's no more room. And then there's the brine line to the ocean. And are there other feasible alternatives identified in the plan? And, of course, they are talking about providing recycled water to CLWA. And they do right now to some extent, don't they? They provide water for some of the golf courses, parks on the west side of the valley. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, we might as well reuse the water. So here's the alternative I'm going to propose. I'm going to propose to them that they, and this, by the way, is an alternative that I proposed before, and everybody tells me is a great idea, but they can't do it because it crosses organizational boundaries, and I'm just not going to accept that answer. Determine the minimum amount of water required by the Clean Water Act to be injected into our river, and when we know that minimum amount of water, which is to sustain whatever habitats are there as required by the Clean Water Act, and subject only that water to reverse osmosis chloride reduction. Then let's take a couple other alternates. Let's take the big money and spend it to build a purple pipe system across the valley, use the remaining recycled water for irrigation of medians, parks, schools, use it all. Okay? Now, if you do that, there's a savings. I mean, it costs money to build that purple pipe system across the valley, but you don't have to buy the water now that you're using for irrigation. So some of that money should be able to come back, help pay for the purple pipe system, and reduce the cost of the whole project. Option 2 was build some groundwater recharge ponds if we end up with an excess, and start recharging wastewater, groundwater. Spence and I went down and we visited Ed Solomon at the water company in Ventura, and they have quite a few recharge ponds. And from what I understand, there are some recharge ponds that the county operates outside of Santa Clarita. And here in Santa Clarita, we have, guess how many? None. Good idea. So, the whole idea is let's treat the minimum amount of water that we have to meet this 100 milligram per liter. Put that back in the river because that's fighting the Clean Water Act, and then let's use the rest of it to our advantage, and hopefully we can recoup some money to pay for it. So what can we do? What can all of us do? Well, you can supply written comments by February the 17th. I'll make sure that you get these charts so that you know who to do it to. I also, if anybody wants it, I believe that I also received this in electronic form. I'll send it to you. You can look at it yourself. But you can send it directly to the county sanitation districts, and Brian Langpap, supervising engineer planning section, will take them on his own. Then there will be some meetings. On February the 1st, 1:30 in the Canyon Room at City Hall. That particular meeting is really is being advertised as being for different agencies, but the public is invited. And I'm going to go there just because I want to see what all those different agencies have to say. But the public meetings are scheduled for February the 1st and February the 9th, 6:30 at the Activities Center in the banquet room, and I'll make sure you get the address. But that's a place we used to meet over there in Saugus. So, is there any question? Yes, go ahead. We have some questions.
Something you should be aware of, in the past when I was elected member of a water district, I was on a committee in Sacramento, and it was a Senate committee meeting on recycled water at that time, over 10 years ago. And it came out in that meeting that the sanitation districts in California have an organization called the Sanitation Districts of California, and it's their lobby. And what they have done is that they have promoted and received legislation that our water, after they clean it, is theirs. They own it. They own it until they dump it in the river. So when you think you can take the water at no cost and use it for your purple pipes, they are charging per acre foot for their water. And when we ask, what are you doing with the money you're getting for that? Because we pay every cent it costs for you to run your plant and your pipe. They said to reduce costs. I said, you're not reducing anything on our tax bills. And we don't know what's going on. But you see, the water that they have that they say is theirs is ours. Just like our suit or dress that at the party we spilled a drink or some food on it and we took it to the dry cleaner, and we paid every cent it took for the dry cleaner to clean it. You got your suit back. Well, we pay every cent it costs to get our water in our homes and to send our water, every cent it costs to send our water to the sanitation plant. We pay every cent it costs to process it, and then it's their water. There's something wrong with this picture, and there's some legislation we need. We need to get our water back.
Did you know that?
Cam has a question back here.
Thank you. One of the things that's missing from all the information you received on here is that CLWA, Castaic Lake Water Agency, as part of their so-called legislative efforts, just like Wes and McLean saying you've got to get rid of your water softeners. There's a big problem. The biggest problem is the imported water from Castaic Lake Water Agency. They were supposed to have a report out by December 31st. I've just requested it again in a public records request, and the information I'm getting back is, no, it's not ready yet. It'll be the first part of February. Well, you can bet it's going to be after those meetings, because that's one thing they have never came out with, is that they are the bigger producer of the chlorides in our water. And they have been stalling the contract. I have the contract. It was supposed to be completed by December 31st. And the other thing, they are already paying for the recycled water that they use. They are buying back that water for their recycled program. So Ed is correct in that, is that we are paying twice for that water. So that's just a few of the things that they're not coming clean with, so to speak, with the community.
Yes, I'd read about this before, that a lot of the salt content in the water is due to upstream uses. A lot of the agriculture uses are contributing a lot to that, and it's always seemed wrong to me that we should be the ones to have to pay for all these upstream users. And then, of course, after we pay for it, we're basically giving it back to the same types of agricultural uses downstream to us. It really, that seems very unfair to me.
Okay, well,
Can we have Ed, since he's sitting here in the room, to answer some of these questions since he's there on the front row?
Give him the microphone. Yeah, give him the microphone.
Yeah, give a politician a microphone. The point was raised that the state water project, the water that CLWA imports, does, of course, contain chlorides. And as long as I have been on the Castaic Lake Water Agency Board of Directors, I have been working to lead an effort. It really is a statewide effort in order to create some sort of an alternative conveyance, what used to be called the peripheral canal, which now is political suicide to call it peripheral canal, but some sort of a alternative conveyance around or under the delta, such that our water, which comes down in large part down, say, the Sacramento River, does not then mix with the tidal flows in the delta, which is actually right at sea level, and the tides come in and out. And particularly in dry years, a lot of the salt water does get mixed in. On an average basis, the chlorides coming from the state water are pretty much the same as the groundwater. But we certainly are very interested in investing a great deal of money currently on plans that will ultimately, hopefully, about a decade from now, relieve us of this problem entirely. If the state water project does not have the chlorides in it, then everything that he has talked about, the problem completely, totally goes away. And so everything that the sanitation district is talking about doing is going to be overtaken by events in the long term. I hope that answered some of the questions.
Sure. And I'll keep my fingers crossed. But anyway, I think that's interesting, and that Mr. Dunn, that, and I want to go look at that some more, because that's, that's really, if you want me to get on a soapbox, I mean, the idea that our local government, in so many aspects, takes money from us to do things for us and then charges us to use it. I don't even want to talk about it. So let's move on from right now. But I'll send you the information, and we really need to put some input in here.